everyone, Erin here, your hostess with the mostest, and welcome to another episode or edition, The Crying Hour, the show where I talk ad nauseum about a particular topic, whether it's political, sexual, or personal. And well, today we're going personal. This is a topic that I didn't know I'd ever make. I didn't even know about this even after I came up with the crying hour and stuff. But the more that I thought about myself and the more that I've just kind of been living day to day, the more all of it makes sense, and I'm going to go into that. So, obviously, you can see by the title that I labeled this Plurality. Like, what the hell is that? Okay, well, I'm not really well versed in everything that's involved with what plurality is. And I believe just like how gender can be expressed in a lot of different ways, plurality is like that as well. Whereas like gender can be cis, trans, gender queer, gender fluid, agender, that kind of thing. Plurality can be a lot of things, but to make the most sense of it for what it means for me, it's that there is two personalities within a single body. And so, for all those people that are making fun of me, like saying that what you're trying to do like two voices and it's so stupid and you're bad at it and stuff. Well, the truth is, there actually is two personalities there. And it kind of developed over time, but it also makes sense, like a lot of things that I've been dealing with lately, as far as how dysphoria manifests, and when I think about how things were hidden from me in the past. So let me just kind of go where I think everything started. And I might also use like a diagram for this, but if not, I'll be using my hands. So even if I wasn't plural, I would still be a transgender woman. That doesn't change. But because of how I developed, both in my youth and in my, well, not youth, I guess, that comes together to show what I have become and why I'm plural. When I was a child, I had a lot of the telltale signs of someone who's trans. I didn't fit into natural, or not really natural, but expected masculine stereotypes in interests, in physique, in expression, just whatever. I used to say things like, oh, the only thing that's keeping me from being a woman is this thing between my legs. And it's honestly kind of strange that I said something like that. I remember telling my mom, and it was when I was like 10 years old or something. So, like, not the youngest, but still pretty young. Anyway, that's a little off track. But I was not comfortable with myself. I was very shy and really socially awkward. I didn't want to interact with other people, and that has a lot to do with the fact that I saw myself as like a man, not man. In truth, I'm a woman, but I couldn't have believed it back then. So a lot of my habits kind of developed over time, or like maybe lack of habits, I would say. I didn't like my body, but I didn't know why. So I just didn't kind of care about it at all. And I did find like a connection, as I have mentioned before, with like cross-dresser and, well, that kind of like pornography and stuff. But when I was in college, I actually started to sort of like entertain the thought and experiment with who I am because, well, it seems like that's just what people do in college. And we want to go back to like the whole diagram thing. Imagine that I am like an entity and all these things inside this entity make up who I am. Parts of my personality, what I care about, how I define myself, how I express myself. And it was developing and it was forming, and there were all these different interlocking pieces. When I made my like first real break for socializing, it was when I was playing Final Fantasy 11, and because I could socialize like anonymously, I was incredibly social compared to like what I was in real life, and it was because people couldn't see me. They didn't know like what my face was or like what my physique was and stuff. Even though like for the majority of it, I played a male character, I still felt that. But this is where it got really important. And I'm gonna try not to ramble on too much, but I played a lot of Final Fantasy 11. Like, a stupid amount. Like, a really regretful, painful amount. But I still, like, enjoyed that. I spent probably about 6 or 8 years playing it. But my total playtime, like you type /playtime to see what, like, when you're actually logged in, was somewhere around like 2 years, 3 months, or whatever the last time I checked, which I did play a little bit longer after that. But that's like the one I remember. And that's a really long time. I was on it daily, and I made so many friends, but this was kind of a long time ago. This was before Facebook was like available to the public. This was before, oh, I hope I didn't shake it too much. This was before, I'm pretty sure Twitter even was a thing, or Instagram, or any of that. And like, a lot of people just didn't share emails or go to chat rooms or things like that. So this was kind of our social platform that we used. So there was a lot of like in-game activity going on, but a lot of socializing too. And I spent so much time on it every day with all these people that I cared about. And I built all these relationships. And I cared deeply about everybody and maintaining those. There was also a part of me that was more like leadership and like wanting to get things done and stuff like that. And then of course there was a side of me that's more emotionally attached to people, that care about that they're using their playtime to the most of like their own benefit, and that they're enjoying their company and I'm enjoying their company and stuff like that. And well, this game was quite the time sink in a lot of ways. And because of that, people would really try to find ways to mitigate that time sinkness of it. And this came in the form of a mythic weapon, where the details of how to acquire it are just ridiculous. And realistically, it would take you several years of daily grinding just to get one. And it wasn't really worth it. So, but people still wanted it, and they found an exploit. And the company, Square Enix, was not happy about that. And then they issued what was called an LM17 strike. And it was kind of like a witch hunt to some extent, I think. Because when they issued that, they just permanently banned anyone. Goddamn, I keep shaking it. Sorry. They just personally banned anyone that they thought was using this exploit that they thought broke the rules of the game without cheats or hacks or anything. Just an exploit that they put in themselves. And one time I logged on and it took me back to the fear and things that I felt when I had my religious background kind of pounded into me. And I'll go into more detail of that, but if you've ever heard about like what revelations would be like, it had kind of that sort of feel. Like I logged on and I had 3 link shells, which you could call them like guilds, or I don't know what other term it would be. And then like 100 plus people on my friends list. And then I log on and there was only like 20 people on my friends list. And my link shells were basically destroyed at that point. There were schedules that people wanted to maintain. There was hierarchy of drops that I was working on for the groups and stuff like that. And it was just this weird, surreal thing. Like people were in the street of the town and they were like running up to each other like, oh my god, I'm glad you're still here. I can't believe what's going on. I'm so scared. And then like after that, people just started quitting the game left and right. And yeah, quitting and saying you're quitting, like that's fine. But out of the blue, without like warning, without being able to tell anyone what's going on. For me, that was a very traumatic experience. And I had put so much of myself into these relationships, into other people, that I kind of broke in that moment. Before then, people would say things like, oh, you're so emotional, you're like on your period every week, even though they saw me as a guy. But after that, people said I was very robotic, that I was very kind of cold and just can't really socialize. And going back to the diagram, this is how I feel it happened. I was a whole person, and here's all the inner working parts. There's a lot of emotional involvement in things and critical parts of me. And when that happened, it broke in half. And the one part, now say hanging like this, had all of my feelings, all of my personal attachments to things. And what was left up here was just my ambitions and my drive to do things, to acquire things and things like that. But there were little strands connecting them, so I could still kind of feel it a bit in a more kind of out of the diagram kind of way. When people go through really traumatic experiences, they are changed forever. And for a lot of people, sometimes they can't handle that, and they'll do something in their own life. And I think it may sound stupid to everyone listening to this. So many people that I cared about, that I talked to every day, and I never expected something like that to happen. And I had so much emotional attachment to them and to that world and everything, that when it was just cut off, I felt like I should never be attached to anything ever again. That it's a waste of time because it will just like be taken away, destroyed, and there was no point in investing in that kind of thing. I now know that's not true. There's always a reason to want to have these things, even if they don't last, because life is fleeting anyway. And I might be using like terminology improperly here. I'm really new to all this, so sorry about that. Think of that split before as not being even, but being like a crescent moon type thing. That there was almost nothing at the top and everything was below. I was kind of like a robot because, in a sense, I was dormant. Like, when I'm saying I now, I'm referring to myself as Aaron. Whereas John was kind of more of a construct that didn't really have the tools capable to continue living a normal life because I sort of like abandoned myself in a way. And I see him as like the lifeline that kept me going. And eventually, like, I started to repair myself as I felt more connected to my emotions and things like that. But here's the thing that's really important. When I was whole and I had a shape to myself before I broke apart, then when I started to come back together again, when I was almost completely whole again, but when I was at the surface enough that I was conscious, which is why when I had my first moment of gender euphoria, like the world shifted and everything focused, like more like when you get new glasses and stuff, and everything was more vivid and more loving and everything. I thought that was kind of like a more or less sort of shallow idea of, well, I'm happier with myself, so now I just appreciate everything more. But I think in my case, it was actually waking up that I had been dormant, and when that happened, I had actually resurrected in a way. And then that's kind of why I told other people this in my real life, but I don't think I've told anyone like online about this. When I'm not using my voice, like nothing else comes out. And that's kind of why it feels sometimes like it's just an act when I know it isn't. And it's because there's such that disconnect between the two sides of parts of myself. And well, when I started doing my Let's Play, I was just kind of having a fun time talking to myself, or so I thought. But what I found as I started to converse with myself, or so I thought again, on my Let's Plays, is that I was kind of having like an actual conversation. And it felt different than just talking to yourself. And at times, I wasn't quite sure what the other person would respond with, which is kind of weird to think about.
I think you're being a little too harsh on yourself. You're just... You've only done so much in your existence or whatever. Now you're just making excuses for yourself. Alright, yeah, I am. Because I'm rusty as a gamer. I admit it. I played years and years of one game and then probably almost a year of another game and pretty much nothing else, but I've watched plenty of games. Yes, but watching isn't playing. Okay. Good. I'm glad that you are so, like, happy to criticize me over this. Oh, that I'm happy or happy. I was being sarcastic. But don't you know you don't understand sarcasm? I do understand. I just ended up kind of hurting myself by pushing myself and making myself sick. And I don't mean to make you sick too, Aaron.
I know that. But that's what happens when you push yourself too much. I don't think that you forget about me. I just think that you're still in the mindset of what you think you should be doing, like you did in the past.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if my thoughts are ever actually going to change. At least until, I start to do HRT.
Yeah, that's going to be quite the ride, according to what other people have said. But I know you're not like Athetos or Trace that becomes Athetos, because there were things that you could have done that you didn't, and things that you could have ignored but you didn't. Really, your life is your own, and you take it into your own hands. And thanks to that, so much good has started to come out of your life. I wish everyone else could see that it's possible for them.
Yeah. But then again, I didn't really see that as a possibility until I discovered you. Or rather, discovered myself.
We really will have to say goodbye to each other someday.
I think not necessarily goodbye, just in the sense that you were always a part of me in the deepest recesses, and I just ignored them, and those feelings grew and grew, and now I can't ignore them. And once you showed yourself, there was just no going back from that. I saw who I really am inside and out. And that's not to say that the things that I care about or cared about in the past, I'm not going to care about anymore. What I mean is, like, I think that it's going to be your time to shine, Aaron. And then I'm going to be fading into the back. I'll never be gone, but, you know, I just won't really be a huge part of things.
But that has me really upset. I really like kind of doing this, like, therapy emotional thing with myself. I can't accept that ending. I'm sorry. I just can't.
It's okay, Aaron. I mean, No one's, putting any arbitrary rules on like, you have to do this or have to do that. If you want to, you know, start over from a save point, you can totally do that. Okay?
Alright, whatever, anyway. But I need you to look up how not to kill her. Right? Like, there has to be a way.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing that just so we don't waste a lot of time.
No, I understand that. That's fine.
Alright, it's just... Okay. Alright. I'm just so sorry, Goat Mom. And you know what the best part is? Alright, seriously, Flowey, like, get off. Fuck you. It's all your fault. No, I refuse to believe that. I mean, the game, like, it tells me what to do and stuff, but like, I hate this trope so much.
Yeah, get him.
It's like, I'm helping the bad guy, I'm enabling their mission or whatever, but they're the one that's on the mission, they're the one that's doing the things. I am just trying to be a good person and help other people. And what would I do then? This game between us will never end. I'll hold victory in front of you, just within your reach, and then tear it away just before you grasp it. Alright, Flowey, you have a lot of problems, but I want to use this opportunity, sorry guys that are hanging in there, to talk about, like, the idea of living for the moment, living for what you have right now. Like, things change. You may play an MMO for you may play an online game for years and years, but you're not going to play it forever. And when it's gone, that's a natural process. You have to be able to move on and appreciate the things that you were able to experience with that. With a book, with a movie, with anything. Because if you don't, you won't really, like, enjoy your life, I feel. You always think about the things in the past and what you're missing out on and what you've always wanted, and not just making the best of what is actually in front of you. And I think that's really important. But I wanted to share that.
Thank you.
No problem.
That's kind of because, again, with the whole diagram, I thought I was whole again. I was connected. But while we were separated and I was dormant, because the construct or the lifeline was forced to kind of keep going and keep living for a couple of different reasons, they over time developed a little bit of like their own personality and emotions and things like that. In a large part feeding off of the lifelines between us. So that when we came together again, we were no longer whole. We could no longer connect. This is something that a lot of trans women actually go through when they're later in life transitioning. You might be socialized, raised, completely male, or whatever that would mean, and want to be completely female. And that difference, that divide of it, is enough for basically to have to kill off the old you. And that's kind of why people say dead name, and why they change their name. Because it's symbolically and actually killing off the idea of who that person used to be, because you are a completely different person now. And it's who you want to be versus who you were forced to be in a lot of sense. I think that when people transition when they're younger, they don't face this quite as much. Like, you don't have 30 years to kind of develop one kind of personality and then try to be completely different. And honestly, even when I was starting my Let's Play, I was kind of almost a little disturbed when I was doing the conversing. When I showed it on this website that I was sharing with other people and stuff, there was actually someone who had schizophrenia. And schizophrenia is different from plurality. I still don't understand like what it fully is, but I know that at the time I just thought schizophrenia was like multiple voices, personalities in your head. I was really worried that people were being offended by the way that I was doing my YouTube and stuff. So I reached out to him to ask them, like, hey, do you think I'm schizophrenic? Do you think this is offensive? They didn't answer. So, and well, now I'm at this point where I even probably mentioned this a couple of times, like on Twitter or YouTube or whatever. I was going to kill John, or John would be gone at some point. And it's because I don't want that. That I can't not be plural. Even though it's a choice. Like, I would rather be plural than try to destroy that side of myself, because I tried to like integrate it and I failed in that sense. When I found myself again and I thought that the real me was John and not actually me, I actually expressed that I thought I created Aaron, that Aaron was the manifestation of everything that I wanted to be. But in truth, if you want to be something, you can just be it. Like, the act or the idea of wanting to do something or wanting to do it, like be this or that, what is holding you back is yourself in a lot of cases, especially in my case. When I really started to think about John and Aaron as kind of two separate things, I wrote down what my feelings were, and if I find that, then I'll insert that in and go over that real quick. Here is what I wrote. Yeah, cause like, Aaron wants to socialize, be everyone's friend, have fun, make jokes, etc. John is concerned about work, accomplishments, getting results, making sure people are doing what they're supposed to, etc. Aaron is also concerned about everyone's happiness, wanting to make everyone's lives better somehow, and loving herself. John was only focused on his own happiness. He felt like he was inferior to everyone else, and that's all that mattered to him, and hating himself. I think I internalized everything I wanted to be, but wasn't, and created Aaron, possibly. We all know that's not true now. And lastly, John is also an asexual prude who hates sex and the culture / mentality around it in both public and private respects. While Aaron is a bit sex-starved, extremely thirsty, and like a nymphomaniac. But suffice it to say that it was actually the opposite. That I created John sorta as a lifeline, like I said, to keep myself from actually destroying myself as like a failsafe or a lifesaver or whatever. The thing about plurality is you don't need to go through trauma to be plural, but in most cases, from what I've seen, it seems to be the case. What happens a lot of times is you yourself cannot find the ability within just yourself to overcome something traumatic. And instead, you kind of entrust a part of yourself to save you or to get you through a really hard moment. And sometimes that part will come back and it won't like become its own thing. But sometimes it doesn't. For everyone that is my friend and knows me, this honestly doesn't change how I will interact or do this or do that, or how you need to treat me or anything like that. Yes, I think using we and us and they and things like that is going to be actually more accurate to what is going on here. But I'm really not familiar or accustomed to that yet. And the reason why that's okay is because John mostly just cares about his ambitions and doing good work and making sure that things are being done properly. Also, he's asexual and kind of a prude when it comes to anything sex related. So, don't have to worry about him there. But, as for me, I'm like 100% of the time the one on social media or doing this or doing that. I do have kind of more like a partnership with him, with my YouTube and stuff. And my wife is kind of helping us go through that a little bit. The other thing is, and I've noticed this when I've been editing and stuff, I'm not always available. Like, you can kind of tell a little bit, I think, when it's me or when it's not, even if I'm using my voice properly. Because my voice is just muscles and muscle memory and like actual physical components coming together and doing something, which John also can have control of sometimes. And I think that actually in a couple of crying hours in the past, or maybe just at points during them, it wasn't actually me talking. It was John, because I couldn't articulate it very well. So I just, and sometimes it like fades in and out. It's a working thing that trying to like really understand and develop. The more that I am able to develop this relationship with John, the more like it'll be natural and kind of not so wishy-washy. And I don't want people to think that that's because obviously I'm not plural. Because, like I said earlier, I know that being plural is a choice for me. But if I don't want to be plural, I have to either integrate John's personality into myself or kill it entirely. And I can't decide on either of those things. Like, I really can't. don't want to lose those parts that still are part of me, but I can't take them back without changing who I am, and I don't want to be that anymore. So it's kind of a rough spot. I'm not sure what else to say on this subject. Again, I'm plural. I am both Aaron and John, though I've just been mostly Aaron in this video, I think. And now I can work on my gender tag video. So I'll be doing that soon. Anyway, if you stayed till the end, thank you. You're a real sweetheart. And take care, everybody.